più tra i farfalloni amoroso, notte e giorno di torno.
Well, hey there, everybody. Madam Roy back again. Well, today I have another cooking video for you guys. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon here in Southern Virginia. Temperatures in the mid-70s. So I figured, let's go ahead and do this outside. Now, you guys know my good friend Christopher Gallosi of Gallosi Enterprises. For this video, he was able to donate some of his fresh basil that he grows at home. I want to thank him for that because this really is what makes this dish. Now, what we're making today is fresh, homemade tomato mozzarella salad. Now, for this, of course, you're going to need a nice cutting board, a nice sharp knife. I like to use this semi-serrated chef's knife. What I mean by that is it has small ridges on it, not like most serrated knives that are very jagged. This is only about half as jagged as normal. Of course, you're going to need some fresh, delicious tomatoes. These are ones that we got on our trip to the Outer Banks at one of the roadside stands. One of the farmers was selling them. They've actually gotten a little bit old. They're a little mushy right now, but that's okay. For this dish, it'll be fine. And if they're a little mealy, in other words, they have a little bit of dark spots on them, if you don't like that, that's fine. You can cut them off. For us, we'll just leave them in there. It gives it character. You're also going to need, as if I can get this open, unfortunately this sticks sometimes. There we go. You're going to need some onion. Now, normally I would use red onion, but we're out of that right now, so I'm just going to use this yellow onion. It's also called Spanish onion, and that'll work just fine in this. And of course, you're going to need your mozzarella cheese. This is Walmart branded whole milk mozzarella cheese, no skim milk here. This one is actually, let me see, it's about 16 ounces. So we got 1 pound of mozzarella cheese there. Gonna need some good old pepper. And because I'm not sure I'm gonna have enough basil, I do have some store-bought basil I'm gonna add to it. Yes, I know that's getting away from the freshness of this recipe, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, this is getting towards the end of the season. So I'm gonna mix these two together. And then last but not least, what I like to use to give a little bit more flavor is this Ken's Light Caesar Italian dressing. You can pick this up in pretty much any store. Our local grocery store, our Food Lion, sells it. I think it costs about $2. So let's go ahead and get started. We've already pre-washed our tomatoes here. And you want to keep the tomato cut fairly thick because over time, if you don't eat this within 1 or 2 days, the tomatoes will get a little mushy, and if you make them really small, it'll just turn into like this little tomato paste, and let's face it, nobody wants that. So first thing I need to do is cut the top off, wasting as little of the tomato as possible. And the way I like to do it, just cut thick pieces. It'd be much thicker than if you're making something like a sandwich style tomato. You would cut it probably about half as thick as this. And then you put a few of them sliced up, probably about 2 or 3 on top of each other. And then you cut twice in the middle, and then twice again. Now, if you have a little bit of a stem, you can go ahead and throw that piece to the side. And then the tomatoes just go right into the pot here. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing with all of these tomatoes. Again, making sure you try to cut as much of the rind off as possible. That saves you from having to pull it out of the tomatoes that you just cut. And again, I usually like to do, depending how big the tomato is, 2 or 3 deep. Pile them up, 2 or 3 here. And then turn it to the side. In this case, because this was a smaller tomato, I'm just going to make one final cut there. And then we're going to go ahead and put it in. And we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Alright, so I'm just about done cutting the tomatoes, but these couple last tomatoes are very, very soft. You can see they're kind of overripe. So to combat that, what I'm doing is I'm going to work with, and try not make a mess like that, work with one slice at a time. So that'll just make it a lot easier, and you won't have a tendency to kind of mush the tomato down, which of course will make a lot of extra juice in the salad over the next couple of days. Again, just work at your own pace. And again, we like a thicker cut in our house, so basically that's what I'm going to do. If you like your tomatoes thinner, then that's your prerogative, but like I said, the thicker cut is better, especially when they're soft, because let's face it, like I said, it's going to go ahead and get a lot mushier real quick. Alright, this is going to be the last tomato. And I'm going to make them different sizes just because, again, that's the way we like it in this house. Uniformity is not what we like here. And as you guys can see, we have all of our tomatoes cut. And the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and move on to our mozzarella cheese. So because I don't want to go in, I've already kind of made a mess out of myself. I'm just going to go ahead and turn this around a little bit. And we'll use this side for the mozzarella cheese. Now, I don't care if any of the juice gets on it because it's going right in with the tomatoes anyway. Now, the mozzarella cheese, we're going to do a little differently. I want this mozzarella cheese to be a little bit on the thinner side. So, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this whole brick in half. Like that, and I think we're going to cut this one in half again. And I left it out of the fridge for a few minutes because I wanted it to get soft. And just kind of take it easy. It'll break apart a little bit, but that's okay. And then we're going to take the knife. We're going to try to make these into cubes, because that seems to be the way everybody in our house likes it. These are definitely going to be a lot thinner than the tomatoes. It's about that thick is good. Of course, got to try one. Excellent. Go ahead and do the same thing. Now, if you guys like them thicker, you can of course do them thicker. Thinner, just go ahead and it takes a little more time, but again, this is going to be all to your personal taste. Now, I'm not actually using the best knife for this. This is good for the tomatoes, but generally, if you have it, you're better using a cheese knife. But as long as you're careful, this can be done safely even with a chef's knife. Alright, as you can see, that did not take very long. So right now we have our tomatoes and our mozzarella in there. Next thing I want to do is go ahead and cut up this basil. Now, basil is a very tricky herb to cut because if it's not in its dried stage, it's still very, very tough because this is really fresh. So you're going to want to take your time and just cut it as best you can. Now, again, we like a thicker cut, so that's what I'm going to do. Another thing you can do with the basil, if you don't want it to be as thick as we like it, you can always put it in a food processor, or even a coffee grinder would do the trick as well. Now I'm just going to cut the stems off here because nobody likes eating the stems. And again, we kind of like a thicker cut here. One thing you want to avoid is if you get basil where the leaf has started to turn kind of a brownish black like that, you want to avoid using it because it's not going to give you a very good flavor. Unfortunately, that does happen occasionally when you have to keep it in the fridge like we did, because Chris gave me this basil about 2 or 3 days ago, and unless you freeze it, basil unfortunately does not stay fresh for very long once it's been picked. Alright, so that is all of Chris's basil. Like I said before, I'm going to go ahead and also add some of this dried basil that I got from the store because there's not quite enough in there for my taste. So what you're doing is got about a pound of tomatoes, maybe a little more, to a pound of cheese, and then I would say about half a cup of basil. Next we'll go ahead and put some pepper in. This is going to be about maybe 2 or 3 tablespoons. Again, I've done this so many times I really don't need to measure it. It's about 3 tablespoons right there. So the next thing we need to do, and actually it's the very last ingredient other than the salad dressing, is we need to go ahead and put in a little bit of onion. And again, you can usually, a lot of times I like to use the red onions, but because we're out, I'm just going to go ahead and use this yellow onion, or Spanish onion as some people call it. And what you want to do with this is give it a pretty thick cut, because you definitely want to taste this in your tomato mozzarella salad. And because this isn't as sweet as a red onion is, we're going to go ahead and put just a little bit less in there, because this can actually tend to give it a little bit of a sour taste if you're not careful. But if you had red onion, put as much in as you want. So yellow onion, put in about a half a cup like I have here. If it's red onion, I would do every bit of a cup, maybe even a little bit more than that. Okay, so just to recap, we have our tomatoes, our mozzarella, in this case the 2 different kinds of basil. We have our pepper, just regular black pepper. We have the half a cup of the Spanish onion. And the very last ingredient in here is going to be the Ken's Caesar salad dressing. Now, because everything sells at the bottom, of course, you're going to have to shake it up. That's with pretty much any kind of Caesar salad dressing. Shake it up. Alright. And again, this is going to be to taste, but I usually like to use about a cup of the salad dressing. I know that sounds a lot, but believe me, it gives it a really nice flavor. Now, just so I don't have to dirty another utensil, I know some of you guys might shun me for this. I'm going to go ahead and stir it with the same knife. I also like doing this because if you use the knife properly and just use the flat edge, it won't go ahead and mush up the tomatoes like a regular spoon would. Go ahead and give this a really, really good stir. Making sure we get the salad dressing on every piece there. All right. And that is it, everybody. I'm going to make a quick taste just to see if we have the right amount of dressing. Definitely. Go ahead and give you guys a close-up look at this. This is our final product, and yes, unfortunately the flies are enjoying it too. You can see the thick cuts of basil there. If I can get that in the picture. There we go. The tomatoes, the good mozzarella cheese, and that's about it, everybody. This is a great dish to take with you to the beach, or basically on any summer day. I usually can't do this in the winter because we don't get good enough tomatoes, but again, this is called it's actually an Italian style tomato and mozzarella salad. Thank you for watching. And remember, as always, have a blessed day, everybody.
Non più tra i farfalloni amoroso, notte e giorno di torno girano, delle belle turbando al riposo, Narcisetto d'amor, delle belle turbando al riposo,